Hey guys, I'm back again and I'm here to do my January wrap up as I promised. Finally, I'm getting down to this. February's been really busy. I've been doing a lot of reading and trying to stay focused. And so here I am finally with this January wrap up. Now, January went well. I had a lot of big books, but I managed to do it. Two of them kind of spilled over a little bit into the beginning of February, but we made reading the majority of those two books. The majority of those two books that spilled over in January. So I'm counting them in January. Now, I only had some particular books that I had to read for the month of January, and then everything else around, was what I felt like reading. So let's get started. So the first book I read, which was spilled over a little bit into the beginning of February, is this one right here, which is La Debacle by Emile Zola, or The Debacle by Emile Zola. This was a enormous read of a big whopping 578 pages. And this book is the 19th book in the Rougon Macau series. We're getting down to the end, Anna and I. We only got one more to go. And this book discusses the war that Napoleon dragged France into with Prussia. And this is a war that was literally unnecessary. Like, tons of people died tragically in this war. It affected families in the most tragic way possible. And to read about it was just mind-blowing. Like, we couldn't believe what we were reading. It just was like, where they do that at? Unnecessary war, but like there was no way France could win that war. Like, no way. Wasn't happening. So this was a very interesting read. In the beginning, it felt a little bit disorientating, but once we got the hang of all the names of the people and we started getting the hang of what was going on, and I went and looked up some things on the online Encyclopedia Britannica site, I started to understand a bit more about what was going on here. I highly recommend this one. It was very good. I gave it 5 stars. You need to take your time with it, but it's a good one. The next book I read was this one right here, which is Aya de Yopougon. This is volume 8 in the series of Aya. Now, I can't really say much about this because it's volume 8. Y'all need to read from volume 1. So just to give you an idea, this is Aya's story. She is a young girl who's still living at home, and she's trying to be independent and fight for rights and to help her friends. And what winds up happening is a whole micmac be happening in this book. And so we follow a few of her friends' stories, which are profoundly different, but they are interesting to read. This is told in a way, sometimes it's things that are humoristic and sometimes it's very serious. But I really like this series. I'm really happy to see that it's still going on to volume 8 because I didn't think it would go much farther. Big disappointment is the size of the book. They don't seem to be able to get the size of the books correctly. So volume 7 is a little bit in this format. The other 6 volumes are in a different format. So they have black. The backs of the book are black and the front has like this picture. But the issue is that the size of this book does not even match the size of volume 7 that's right before it. I don't get it. I don't know what's going on, why these publishers can't just stick with the series and make that shit all look the same. But yeah, so anyway, highly recommend this series. Go get your volume 1 of Aya if you haven't read it yet. Okay, the next book on my list is Les Liaisons Dangereuses by Chaudelot de la Clos, which is Dangerous Liaisons. And this was my husband's pick. So over there in my cart, I have to unwrap the books. You know how I've been doing that. Well, unwrap this one. And this was a reread. So this is kind of interesting how this is going. So I reread this one and I stuck with my 4 stars with this one. I highly recommend it. This is a story of it's sort of like a love, uh like unrequited love to a certain extent. And it revolves around a bet to entice a young woman who's been living in a convent to sleep with her. And this it's so good, this, because of the way it's written. So it's written in the epistolary format. But what I had forgotten is in the beginning, there's like it's like a publisher editor's note where the editor, it talks about the grievances of writing this novel, and the grievances of writing this novel and how it could affect young women, and that it's like protected from the eyes of young women, kind of thing. I thought it was kind of funny because I'm like, y'all need to be publishing this and giving it to all the young women in the convent so they know what to look for. But anyway, very, very good. I loved it the second time around. I lucked out this time and picked something that I really liked. So my husband knows how to pick out books. Wow. Okay, the next book on my list is Camille by Alexandre Dumas, Le Fils. So this is the son of Alexandre Dumas, who wrote the Count of Monte Cristo. This is his son who wrote this book. And in this book, this was my Read So Lit Patreon book club pick for the month of January, and I thoroughly enjoyed this. The club, I think we enjoyed it as a whole. This is a book that begins with like an estate sale in a young woman's home who has died, and the person who's speaking and telling us the story goes to this estate sale, and he purchases an item, and he then takes the item back home, and then a young man knocks at his door, and he's inquiring about the object that the man purchased, which is a diary of some kind. So it's a love story, which is kind of crazy because it was clear that this was never going to be able to be a viable love relationship. But the young man was so entitled and arrogant that he thought it was going to go his way. But anyway, be that as it may, I highly recommend reading this one because it shows a big difference between the father and the son's style of writing. And this is one of the most famous works, French works, from a Dumas. And it's called, in French, they call this one La Dame aux Camélias. But I highly recommend it. It's interesting. It makes for a very good book club discussion. There's a lot to talk about. Writing is very beautiful. Highly recommend it. Okay, the next book on my list is this one right here, which is Let Us Descend by Jesmyn Ward. I'm not going to really say that much about this one because I already did a review on it, which I will link below for you to check out. I liked this book. I didn't love it. I didn't dislike it. I just liked it. I think I gave it 3 stars. But, Jesmyn Ward seems to be honing her skills and improving in her writing with every book that she writes. And I feel like she's gone into a new depth of her writing, and definitely you should check it out. Okay, the next book I read was My Son's Story by Nadine Gordimer. I'm not going to talk too much about this one because I read this one to discuss it with Christy over on our podcast, Brown Girls Booking. This is a story that takes place in South Africa. We have a Black family where the father has a relationship he's married with a son and a daughter, but he steps out on his wife with a white woman who is in the same activist group that he's in, fighting for the rights of Black South Africans. And one day, the the father and this white woman are leaving the theater on the other side of town, and his son is coming towards him and sees him with this white woman holding this white woman's hand, and stuff happens, stuff ensues. Interesting read, not my cup of tea for the storytelling, not really for me. But, when you listen to the podcast episode, you'll hear all about it. The next book on my list is this one right here, which is called The Last Thing You Surrender. You know everything of what I think about this. If you've been following me for a while, I love, love, love this book. I love, love, love this author. Highly recommend, of course, The Last Thing You Surrender. I don't need to say nothing else about it. The only reason why I don't have it is because I lent it to a friend. I hope to get it back in one piece. So the thing about this one you have to keep in mind is Leonard Pitts Jr. has a sequel to this book coming out this year. I think it's coming out in September. It's called 54 Miles. And if you want to get ready for 54 miles, then you got to get on The Last Thing You Surrender. Okay, last but not least, I read this, which is The Life of Martin Luther King by Jonathan Eig. And I read this as a buddy read over on Instagram. There was a bunch of us that decided to read this as a group, and it was a fantastic discussion. And the book was fantastic. I mean, I learned so many things about King that I did not know. And I think that's the beauty about this book. You learn new things about King that you probably didn't know before. And also, it's the way Jonathan Eig writes this story. It's nonfiction, but it is so easily read. I did immersive reading for this. I think immersive reading works better for me with nonfiction. But this was so well written and so interesting. There was never a moment when I was like, oh, no, I got to get back to the nonfiction. No, I absolutely loved it. It was fantastic. I highly recommend it. Now, it is hella long. I ain't gonna lie, okay? Because this one was weighing in at 557 pages. So, yeah, it's a bit on the heavy side. It's just thickums, So, beware of that. But I promise you, if you are very interested in learning more about King, this is the one you need to read. Hands down. Very, very good book. This one I gave 5 stars because I was just like, we not playing. This is a 5-star book. So that's all that I read last month. So that means this month I read 1 graphic novel, 3 books over 500 pages. I read 2 classics and 1 nonfiction. So I feel like I did pretty well this month of January. I managed to, even be more wide ranging with my reading this month. February might be a little different, but I had decided that I wanted to try to read at least 1 nonfiction a month and try to read at least 1 short story collection a month, if possible, or at least try to read 12 in the year. This is kind of what I want to do because short story collections are, I have issues, with them because I have, because if I don't find one that I really, really love, then I get easily distracted and I just DNF the damn thing. So we're going to see, you'll see in my February wrap up how I, work that out to do a short story collection and a nonfiction. So that is all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this. Comment below if you want to comment about anything that I read. You want to ask me questions about it, or if you want to say if you liked something or didn't like something. Let's have a chat below, and I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye-bye.